Good evening, everyone. We're going to get started here in just a few minutes. Sorry for the delay. We were making sure that we had our mics, our audio, and our visual all set up so that we could have a robust conversation with you this evening. I just wanted to let folks know that the conversation will be recorded, and we'll make sure that everyone has access to this after tonight's event. We understand that there are also some other counties and cities that are interested in the conversation, so we want to make sure that everyone has access to the event tonight. With that, we want to go ahead and jump right in. So, welcome to Fair Count's third stop on the iCount virtual bus tour. We are thrilled to be virtually in Telfair County tonight. In March, Fair Count launched a statewide bus tour aimed at bringing awareness to the 2020 census and to mobilize Georgia residents to complete the 2020 census. Unfortunately, within a few days, we had to suspend the tour and take the bus off the road due to the global pandemic. However, that has not stifled our outreach, and we understand that, the census is more important now than it has been ever before. So we've continued our outreach virtually, digitally. We were slated to make a stop in Telfair County. So we're here to make that stop with you tonight virtually. In addition to this event, our team has been texting, they've been calling Telfair County all day, even some yesterday, encouraging residents to participate in the 2020 census. As of this morning, Telfair County had a self-response rate of 26.8% compared to Georgia's self-response rate of 57%. So you can see we do have some work to do. And I feel like with this team that we have on this call, we can put our heads together and come up with some ways to make sure that we continue that outreach. I did want to, before we get in the conversation, introduce some of our special guests that we have on tonight's call. We are so fortunate to have Telfair County Commissioner Dakkia Bradshaw, if you would just give a wave. We also have City Clerk Amanda Gonzalez out of Jacksonville, Georgia.
Hi.
We have Mayor Mike Young out of Mcrae-Helena. I'm not sure if his sound is on yet, but he is here with us. Mayor Jimmy Kirkland from Milan. We're hopeful that we'll be able to join us in just a few minutes. And we also have City Clerk Rebecca Jackson out of Scotland, Georgia.
Hi.
So thank you so much to our special guests and these public servants for taking out some time on your busy day this evening to discuss with us some ways how we can continue outreach around the 2020 census. So with that, I want to start the conversation with someone who I've had the pleasure of having a few conversations with now, coming up with innovative ways and how we tackle the 2020 census in Telfair County. So I want to turn to Commissioner Bradshaw to kind of start the conversation. Commissioner, I know that you are very passionate about the census. You've reached out to us at Fair County. You've been working with our organizer, Evelyn Jondon, quite a bit on the ground. And I know you're working the Complete Count Committee there in Telfair County, but why is the 2020 census so important to you, and why have you taken this initiative on? And you could be working on probably a million other things.
Well, it's important to me because it brings back funding into our county, whether it's with Title I, roads, industry. We're having businesses. We were hit hard because we lost a huge business in Telfair County that employed a lot of people. And I would love to see businesses come into this community. I have a daughter that's graduating. I would love to tell her, once you graduate, come back to Telfair County so you can work here. And I would love to see that happen. Also, it helps with funding for getting hospitals. We don't have a hospital. We're in a rural area. We lost our hospital years ago. And we're working now to try to get something like a mini clinic that could possibly help our county out. It's going to be a tough battle, but we're still, as commissioners, we're working hard. And whoever wants to try to partner up with us, that can help us out, because it's great when you have, you're greater in numbers. But mainly, I would love to see this funding come into Telfair County to help our county out.
That's awesome. I can appreciate that sentiment, and you touched on a lot of the issues that I plan to bring up, and as it relates to economic development and healthcare and all of the many ways that oftentimes people don't really think about in terms of the 2020 census. So understanding that each city or town is very unique, even in Telfair County, and knowing that your outreach could be even different. We want to just get an idea of what type of outreach your city or town has taken on as it relates to the 2020 census, and also finding out if COVID-19 has impacted that outreach in any way. First, I want to turn to City Clerk Amanda Gonzalez out of Jacksonville.
We have encouraged all of our residents to fill out their census forms. We have a lot of elderly people within our city. I think, because when I did the census form, I know it was, it was a lot of work, and some of the stuff, you kind of read into. I think one thing that prevents them all from filling it out is they don't have help, or maybe they don't understand. As I was talking to Ms. Bradshaw earlier today, I would be willing to set something up within the city hall for the residents to come in, and I could help them with it. And seeing, notices out with their water bills and stuff to, kind of encourage them to get this form filled out, and the importance of it. I know a lot of people don't know the importance of the census, as Ms. Bradshaw just talked about, with the fundings and stuff.
That's awesome. I think it's some innovative ways, and I think there's a way we can help with that, and that I'll touch on in a little bit, that Ms. Bradshaw has also been working with us on as well in terms of outreach. Next, I think Mayor Young, I think his mic is good to go now. So I want to turn to him and see maybe what's going on in Mcrae-Helena in terms of outreach, and how has the pandemic affected any of that, if any?
Yes, thank you. I ended up getting on my cell phone. So am I coming through now?
Yes, sir. We can hear you loud and clear.
Awesome. I definitely think that COVID-19 has made an impact on it, and I want to commend Commissioner Bradshaw for the work that I've seen her put out to get the word out to the public. But echo what everyone else is saying. I think when you look at our part of the world in terms of healthcare, the big approach to fix that, and how I know it will tie into the census numbers, is of course rural broadband. I see a trend going to the telehealthcare world in our type of communities. And speaking of the coronavirus and COVID-19 and how it impacts, looking at numbers, just with we'll take the CARES Act and the funding and how that's going to be redistributed. Those numbers, if we only count 27% of our county, then those numbers are tremendous. And then of course with businesses and everything else, it's important that we get those numbers up, and just the funding alone that's going to come with those numbers. So. Absolutely.
You guys are teeing it up for the rest of the conversation so nicely. So I appreciate you helping me out here with the moderation. I want to turn now to City Clerk Rebecca Jackson out of Scotland. What's going on in Scotland in terms of outreach?
Well, we do the same thing. We try to encourage all of our citizens to participate. I did have one citizen come to us and said that her, she's an older lady, that her form that was left in her door had her wrong zip code on it. So she was scared to fill it out, so she just ripped it up. But I agree with the clerk in Jacksonville that I talked to Ms. Bradshaw, and we would love to have something in our city hall that we would help them fill out. I actually filled out the one myself, and it is kind of complicated. And our town is like with Jacksonville, we have a lot of older folks in that doesn't understand, and we have a lot that can't read. So if they come in, we could definitely help them with it.
Good. It sounds like you guys are certainly being creative and innovative about, thinking about how to approach this in ways to do that. This has already been touched on, but the 2020 census will direct roughly $1.5 trillion worth of resources to states, counties, cities, towns, just like a lot of them that are on this particular call. In Georgia, for instance, it's estimated that for every person not counted in the 2020 census, we lose upwards of about $3,600 per person. So if you think about one person over the span of 10 years, that's roughly $36,000. That's a lot of money, particularly for some rural community. I was born, raised in a rural community, so I certainly understand the importance of every dollar. So the census also helps to drive economic development and the recruitment of new businesses. So how is your city or town approaching economic development and thinking about that in a creative and innovative way, and maybe even tying that into census outreach? And I'm going to open that up into the entire group.
Well, I'll start off. We, as Commissioner Bradshaw mentioned, we we had a business, Husqvarna, to close, and at the time they were around a little over 1,000 employees, I think. Commissioner Bradshaw, if you correct me if I'm wrong, but working together as a city and a county, and leaders from all around our area, community leaders as well, not just elected officials at state, we were able to recruit and land a new industry, Godoni, and they'll be putting a North American headquarters, their first headquarters, or their first business and right here in Telfair County. And it goes back to the numbers. Do you have the employment? Do you have the workforce to make that happen and to recruit those type of businesses?
Absolutely. Anybody want to add in and chime in?
Well, just to reiterate on what Mayor Young said, we were hit hard, and using the resources that we had to bring that company in. And we also have another business that's actually coming in, Roses, that's actually coming in. So that's going to be more jobs for our county. We have another business that's here, the Telfair Forestry Products. They're continually expanding. So we're looking to get the numbers up in Telfair County.
Yeah, when you think about economic development and we think about having a fair and accurate count, you guys have touched on this, but businesses are looking to relocate or maybe even start up. You talked about when people graduate and having them come back to an area, but they're looking really at the demographics. They're looking at the population trends to indicate whether or not it's good for business. And so it could be that your population is trending up, or it could be thriving, but your census counts are not showing that. And so we really want to make sure that you get a fair representation, from the dollar sense, from the representation sense, but also from the economic development point of view as well. I just wanted to see if anyone else wanted to chime in before we moved on to the next question. Okay, so this has also been touched on in terms of access to broadband, but internet connectivity is certainly a challenge in many of Georgia's rural areas, like Telfair County. One of the recent reports indicated that nearly 20% of Georgia households lacked adequate access to broadband, or they had some type of dial-up service. And so this has really been the first time that the census has been primarily online. You can go to My 2020 Census to complete it, my2020census.gov to complete it at any time. And so a lot of people have driven to the internet to complete their census. But we do know that that's a challenge and that's a barrier for a lot of people, particularly in our rural communities. Last year, Fair Count set out with a goal of 150 of unique internet installations across the state, in community centers, daycares, Head Starts, and churches, places of worship, wherever you can think of, we've kind of tapped into. And so I know Commissioner Bradshaw reached out to us about some locations in Telfair County. Really what we do is we provide a location or entity with a hotspot, a mobile hotspot. And actually I have one right here with me. We provide them with a hotspot. And then we also provide a set of Chromebooks or iPads. And we allow that organization or that entity to provide them to usage of the public to complete the census, but also other civic engagement initiatives that they need to be engaged in. We're seeing some cities and counties now having people apply for unemployment benefits, other state and federal benefits, as it relates to the CARES Act. So there are a lot of different ways that these devices can be used. But do you think this is a resource that could be beneficial to your city or town? And I'd really like to hear from each one of you, because just kind of hearing your initial statements, it seems like this is certainly something that could work. And it's certainly something that Fair Count would like to work with you on to provide these resources.
Well, I think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
For the city of Scotland, yes, it would, something that would set up there that I could help the older folks. Our majority of our city is a lot of older people, and they're anywhere from their 70s and 80s, and I know a percentage of them can't read and write. So something there when they come in to get a Pepsi or something, I can ask them if they had filled out their census or had anybody help them, and if not, I could just go ahead and help them, and that would be one less to do.
Anyone else?
I think it would really be beneficial for Jacksonville as well.
Are there, just thinking about locations, and I mentioned some of the other locations that we have, even outside of like the county squares or the city halls. Are there other like unique places that people thrive and go to? And of course, we understand that the global pandemic is still a thing, even though some people think it's not. Yeah. We want to make sure that we're keeping the social distancing, and we do provide guidelines to a lot of our partners with, how to, wipe the devices down in between usage and make sure that you don't have a line behind people in terms of using them. But just thinking about where people are gravitating to right now, how can we maybe go about reaching them? Because one of the things is, and I say this a lot, is that the census is not really one of those sexy topics, right? So we don't talk about it a lot. And so we really have to meet people where they are in order to engage them. And so I'm just interested, is there certain places within your communities and towns that people gravitate to that could be a center for a hub?
Well, here, a lot of people go to the stores, like grocery stores, and because they've remained open this whole time during the pandemic. And I thought that would be a great idea to place one of the hubs up there. And I'm still trying to work on trying to get, permission so that we could put that up there, because people go in the grocery stores all throughout the day from the time that they're open to the time that they get ready to close. So that would really be beneficial in our county.
So trying to just think outside the box just a little, and I'm not sure how we can do this. I was just thinking, one thing in our area that always gets attention is if you involve the kids at the high school. And with the technology, with the hotspot, and something cool to engage maybe some of the civic groups at the school, and to bring that public in. And I'm more concerned about the coronavirus, I think, anything when we do this. But how can we set up some spots with maybe a group from the school and reach out that way? And I think we attract some attention, and plus we get young people interested in our civic engagement as well that way. So just try to think of something we could do with maybe something on that line.
And I'm so glad you brought up the students, and some of our other even rural communities. We've done a lot of outreach to students. I've been out of school, so they've been bored, they're at home all the time, and they have a lot of extra time, as some of you probably can even attest to if you have kids and children that are home. But we even have virtual outreach that they can do. They have phones and that type of thing, and there are ways for us to continue to do that. I mentioned earlier that we've been texting into Telfair County. Maybe some of you have received a text message from us about the census, but we were also phone banking. So even outside of the devices, there are other ways that we could still reach people, and I think the students is certainly a good conduit for that. Other ideas, Ms. Gonzalez or Ms. Jackson?
What about the individuals that are incarcerated? Like, are they counted any kind of how?
Yes, that's a really good question, and I think Mayor Neal was going to bring this up on his when he was going to slated to be on the call. But they're considered in group quarters, and there's a special enumeration process in which that information is submitted to the Census Bureau. And for a county like Telfair County, and I believe you have two. Is it prison and correctional center? Is that right?
Two prisons and the jail. Yeah.
So that, your low self-response rate is not taken into consideration, some of that population. But, we also know that there are other folks that have not completed their census even outside of those that are incarcerated. But there is a special enumeration process that those facilities go through to make sure that they are indeed counted. And they're counted as residents of whatever municipality that facility is in.
I think another issue that we have is homelessness, because I do know some people that are here in my area in Lumber City that you know, they don't have lights, they don't have water. So I mean, if you're living like that, I consider that as being like homeless, where you don't have the essentials that you have every day. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of them don't, because a lot of people are leery about giving their information out because they think that it's going to cut off benefits or something like that. They're trying to get information on me, and I tried to explain. I even did a Facebook post, a video, showing people how easy it was to complete the census count, and then giving them the facts about the census count. But a lot of people are still afraid to actually complete the census count because they think they're going to get in trouble. And what I'm leading to with this is, as far as like people that are here that are not legal. A lot of people are here that's not legal, and they fear that maybe they will get deported because they're giving out information for the census, which is not true. That was a question that I had to ask because at that time I didn't know myself. Right. What to tell this lady that had asked me that. So, but homeless, I think we need to reach out to the community to try to get some people that don't have access to internet, don't have access to anything, any cell phones or anything like that, so they can be counted as well.
You brought up two good points that I'm gonna touch on really quickly, and that's the homeless population, people that are experiencing homelessness. And the census timeline has changed quite a bit as a result of COVID-19, and even now slated to end on July 31st, and now the Census Bureau has recommended an extension through October 31st. So several months that has been extended on. But the process for counting people that were experiencing homelessness, that process was already have taken place in the spring. And right now, the Census Bureau is actually, they're reevaluating their process for how they're actually going to, enumerate or count the people that are experiencing homelessness. So that is something that is real. And I think a lot of people, even think that even in rural communities that there are people that are experiencing homelessness. And so we'll make sure that we keep you abreast to the Census Bureau's process moving forward as it relates to counting people, soup kitchens and shelters, things of that extent. The second thing is that those that are may not be citizens of the United States. So there's no citizenship question on the census, the 2020 census. So that is not something that will, that information is not shared. It is protected under Title 13 of the United States Constitution. So we want people to recognize that it is a safe thing to them, to do. It takes 10 minutes. It could take a little more depending on how many people are living in your household. But we do want people to feel as though it is a safe thing to do. I'm looking at something here that says, looking at food giveaways. And one of the things that we've done in other rural communities where there's a food bank, and I'm not sure, maybe some of you can touch on this, but we've been able to work with entities there to provide them with palm cards or flyers that, have a basic, description of the census, where they can go, what they can do. A lot of people don't even know that you can actually call in to complete the census. There's a toll-free number. You can do it over the phone, which could be a mechanism for a lot of our seniors that the two of our clerks have talked about in your respective localities. I think there might be some safety issues with, they may not feel comfortable going online, or they may not even be able to complete it the paper form. But if they can make a phone call to call in to do it over the phone, that could be a good conduit for them as well. So just thinking about the food banks and the food giveaways, are there unique opportunities that exist like that in some of your cities and towns?
There are. There's a food bank that comes to Lumber City. I'm unsure about Mcrae. I know that one time that someone, they did post on social media that there was a food that was coming to Mcrae. So I would have to reach out to some of the mayor or the commissioners there that possibly would know. I'm unsure about Jacksonville and Scotland.
No, we don't have anything in Jacksonville.
We don't either, not in Scotland.
Okay.
How about in Mcrae-Helena, Mayor Young?
I'm not familiar with any either. I'd have to double check on that, but I'm not familiar with any.
Okay. Expanding upon that, because that certainly was in one of our participants posed that question or that idea. But just kind of thinking in that same mindset, are there other ways that we could potentially, reach people where they are?
Well, our town has a volunteer fire department that I would think maybe that I'm not going to speak for them, but they like to get out to grocery stores and stuff like that. If they had some way of reaching out to people, set up a table out, and when they go into grocery stores and stuff like that, that would be good. Might be something to consider.
So that's a good idea, Rebecca. Is there? I remember, and I'm not for sure if this program's still going on or not, but we back years ago we had a program where we would offer smoke detectors from the fire department and go out and install them, and maybe we could make that a dual role as hey, we got you a smoke detector, we'll install, but will you complete the census to get it? So
right, there you go.
So I have a question. I'm sorry. So I have a question. This weekend we're going to have a Telfair Togetherness March. Is there possible that we can get a internet hub by this weekend? And once people gather around, hey, I'm gonna be there. I can ask people, have they completed their census count? If they haven't, I'll be there to help them walk them through that.
We can sure try to tackle that offline to see if you and I can maybe talk through that tomorrow. And of course, we want people to practice, safe social distancing when doing so, and you as well if you're going to be operating that. But our staff is teleworking at the current time, but we do have staff that's situated across the whole state. So that's certainly something. If you see me writing over here, I'm writing notes. You all are giving really good ideas that I think could be helpful even for other cities and towns across Georgia. But that is something I'll follow up with you first thing in the morning with, Commissioner, to see if that's something we can make happen, because we want to make sure we are reaching folks.
Well, I have a question also that was presented. Our little city is in, part of our citizens are actually in Telfair County and Wheeler County. So if we put a hub up in our little city hall, do we just do Telfair County citizens, or can we do Wheeler County citizens too?
Yeah, really good question. It wouldn't matter what county they're from. So if they're from Dodge, Wheeler, Telfair, whatever, they could still, still utilize it to do it there. The other thing is that, sometimes people think that mailed questionnaire that they get in the mail, it does have a 12-digit, ID number that they have to and put in online if you choose to do it that way. It is not mandatory, though, that you use that ID number. If you use the ID number to do it online, it pre-populates your address, so it saves a step or two. But you are able to complete it without that. And so I think a lot of people, there's misinformation as it relates to that, because we don't want people to feel like they can't do it because of that, and that stifle them, because sometimes that reminder that's coming in the mail, it gets thrown with the junk mail, with everything else, and there's still an opportunity to do that even if you don't have that piece of mail.
Okay.
Others before, and this kind of flows into the next question, but which is, Fair Count as an organization, we, obviously want a fair and accurate count in the 2020 census, but we're also strengthening the pathways to greater civic participation. And so we want to collaborate with cities and towns and residents to ensure that we have that accurate count. So we want to be partners in that way, but just thinking, are there ways that understanding that we are doing most of what we're doing virtually, and again, we'll make this accessible via YouTube and channel. You can push it out on social media. You can push it out to your list, your email, and that type of thing. But are there things that you think we could be doing as an organization to assist you in your efforts that you already are doing on
ground? That's the question, right? How do you and this is just I don't it's the public in anything you do. How do you engage them? If we could pretend this was a zoning matter and bring them all in, we would pack the house, right?
So that's actually But that's a good point, and I'm glad you alluded to that, because we have found that you do have to make the census very relational to people. So if there is an economic development project in your city or your town, are you related to, and say, look, if we don't have a fair and accurate count, we're not able to bring businesses to our city or our town.
That's great.
One of the clearest examples that I like to use, I think is very plain for people, is the education. And the monies that come from the federal government. So I talked about the $1.5 trillion, but just thinking about it in terms of school facilities and how our schools are often underfunded. When a county or a city is looking to build a new school, they're looking at census data to drive, how many kids they need to account for in the school. But we also know that kids are some of the most undercounted communities and populations that exist. So they're basing their numbers off data that's not fair and data is not accurate. And so when they build a school, you get way more kids show up than what you normally would have. And then you have, the trailers out back, or you have crowded classrooms. But if we had a fair and accurate count, we'd have those additional monies to be able to build the facilities and infrastructure. We also talked about the healthcare part of it, the hospitals. A lot of our rural hospitals have closed in recent years. And so if we're able to bring those monies in for healthcare and clinics, those are services that, that a community need. I've never been an elected official. I've never been in your seat, but I do know, I worked for some elected officials. So I do know that, oftentimes constituents are saying, why don't we have this, or why don't we have that? This county has this, but we don't have that. Just, have you filled out your census? Has your household filled out your census? Because, we need to make sure that we're counted in that way. So really making it relational as it relates to any of those things, because really you can tie almost anything to the census. So, I would just say, just making it relational and show the direct impact to families.
So my question is, how do we reach our Hispanic community? Because I don't think anyone, I don't speak Spanish. An interview that I did on our local radio station, I did ask one of my daughter's classmates, and she was so gracious to interpret, and I was really appreciative of that. But how do we reach the Hispanic community?
Well, and that is a way where we can be a resource. We do have partners in the Latinx community across the state. We can provide materials in Spanish. Even if there is a local radio station in which you want to, project information in Spanish, we do have folks on our staff that are able to do that. And so we can communicate in that way to push the information out to some of our Latinx communities. So there are a number of resources available that we can make available to, Telfair and the cities within the limits as well.
I think with this pandemic going on, that's really what's has us so behind, because everything is closed up. Like if our courthouse was open, if our city halls were open, we could put those hubs in those areas to try to reach people that come in and pay their water bills. So I think this pandemic has really, really affected us, a lot. But we're still gonna try to get these numbers up. I try to post it on my social media, and I know people probably get mad at me because some of my family members, they say you post a lot on Facebook.
Never too
about
much.
The census. Why don't they fill their census? And one of my family members is like, you need to talk to your people down there to make them fill out the census count. I said, well, I'm trying to get the word out as much as I can.
What about places of worship? Because we do partner with a lot of different denominations and places of worship to, in fact, we've installed the internet in a lot of them. But we do partner with them, and I know a lot of them have, they're either doing drive-up services or virtual services or a number of other things that we certainly, great that they are practicing those social distances, initiatives. But I think there are still creative ways where we can send that message out, even using those platforms. Or are there ways that your cities and towns are maybe working with your faith-based institutions to make sure that the message is getting out?
Again, back to my social media, I put it on there one day, trying to get some of the pastors, because I don't know all the pastors' names, and nobody responded. If I could get like a better response, I don't know if I need to go by each church and, hand them out some information that way, to try to get them engaged, to try to make sure the people in their church have filled out their census. So it's just, I'm looking for suggestions. I mean, because I've tried and I don't know. I just, maybe I'm going about it the wrong way. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm trying to do the best that I can, but I don't know how to get the word out more than how I'm doing it now, you know, besides putting it out on social media, word of mouth, because I always ask people, have you completed your 2020 census? A lot of people, it was one kid, he graduated a year or so ago, and I asked him, have you filled out your census? He said, what's that? And I had to explain to him, I said, make sure that you tell your mom to fill out that census. Well, now I'm going to go back and check up on them to make sure they did fill it out, because I haven't checked to make sure. So I guess I need to hold myself accountable for trying to make sure that everyone completes their census as well.
We do have an internet hub in Mcrae at Turner Chapel AME as well. That, you know, they have devices in the hotspot that are available. So we want to make sure that, you know, those are accessible to the public. Yeah, I don't know their service situation at this particular time, and we do offer a number of toolkits on our website for faith-based places of worship where they can organize, even virtually. We do offer one in Spanish as well. So we're trying to be creative in that way to reach places of worship. Anybody else have anything to add to the places of worship conversation?
Well, our little town only has one, basically, a Baptist church, and they actually just started back having service on Sunday. But most of everybody that goes to the church there are actually citizens of our little small town. So if everybody comes in to pay their water bill, the best place for us, because we only have a post office that's open 2 hours. We do have a new restaurant, but everybody comes into City Hall. That would be our best place to reach out to people.
Does the city, I'm just thinking now because I've heard this in working with some other cities and towns, but does your city mail out water bills on a monthly basis?
Yes, we do.
So I'm just wondering, because some cities have even included some type of leaflet or something on the water bill that says, don't forget to complete your census. You can go here or you can call here to do that, which you can certainly, that's acceptable to do in terms of outreach. So that may be something.
With the next bill.
Yeah, that could be.
And
something.
I can bring you some leaflets, you know, because I did receive some. I can bring you some by. I'll bring some to Jacksonville, Scotland, and Milan. I gave some out to Lumber City and some to Mcrae-Helena as well.
Okay, sounds great.
Please do, Dakkia, because I can also like post notices in the post office and stuff for people that go in there, because, you know, like as city clerks in such a small town, I know just about everybody in our town. So, you know, it'd probably be easier for me and the clerk in Scotland to like reach out to our citizens with that.
Yes.
And one of the things that I also asked, I went to the Lumber City post office and I asked, because when I got some of those leaflets, I asked, would I be able to like leave some up here for people, you know, or could they put them in their boxes? And they said that they're not allowed to do that. So, and that's understandable.
Right. Yeah, so, you know, I'm just thinking from, you know, one of those small towns as well, where you go to the post office and everybody that you see while you're at the post office, you know, and you have a conversation with while you're there. So I certainly understand that those are the hubs within the cities and places that we could do outreach in. And it could be even in, you know, thinking really out of the box here, but, you know, you mentioned your grocery stores. You know, maybe the grocer there will allow you to put, you know, some of the leaflets in the bags that, you know, where people are getting their groceries. Sometimes they put, you know, coupons or flyers in there. Maybe they can add something about the census as well, because ultimately, you know, again, talking about economic development, it does have an impact on businesses and their ability to thrive as well. So there's some incentive for the businesses to be a part of the conversation and solution as well.
I think the problem is we're such a fast world, and it has to impact us at the moment, and we have to realize it impacts. I love what you said about tying it into some type of economic development, some type of project we have going on. But if we go back to the kids at the grocery store, so what can we do? We've got to figure out how can we get this person's attention for that 5 minutes that it's going to take for that hotspot person that's sitting there, what can we do to bring them right there, right then? I understand the post office. I understand the putting the flowers in the bags and mail them out, but we're going to open it up and we're going to put it over here to the side, and we're going to do that later. How do we, what's the catch to find, how do we engage them right then? That's the glitch we got to find.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to something I talked about a little bit earlier, and that's meeting people where they are in cases which it's been tough to do with COVID-19. But if there are festivals or people are congregating in one large area, having them completed on the spot using the devices, so that way it's being done right for that household. Or even when we were going to do our bus tour. On the road, we were having burner phones where people could, if they wanted to just call at an event, they were able to do it. They could, so we knew that they were actually completing it right there on the spot. They weren't waiting till they got home, because you're right, people are busy. When they get home, things are coming up. We get distracted very easily. So that type of outreach has definitely been stifled a bit, just as it relates to the pandemic.
Well, I've always said that being the city clerk of such a small town, I'm not only the city clerk, but I'm also the town councilor. So I can, when people come in to pay their water bill, they like to stand there and talk, and that's a great way to catch them and say, hey, you want to do this right now? Let's just go ahead and get this over with. And you can catch them, and that's the best place for us to do it in Scotland.
And you all are trusted voices. That's why we have you on this call, and we're projecting this message because people trust you in your communities in which you reside, and so they're looking to you. And so when you're telling them why it's important and they should do it, they're going to do it. And so we want you to continue to do that. Anything else before I move on to sort of our next and last segment of the conversation? This is the really fun part for me. Not to say that this hasn't been fun, because this has been one of the more intriguing conversations that I've been a part of. So I really appreciate all of the feedback, and hopefully, something you were able to grab from this will certainly have an impact in your respective, city or town. But to close out today's conversation, I want, each of you in about 60 seconds or less to tell me what makes Telfair County or your city or your town so special to you. So, why is it special to you? Why does it hold that special place in your heart? Why are you serving the public? Why are you a city clerk? Why are you, did you run for mayor? Why do you want to serve? Why do you want to be commissioner? What is it that makes the place in which you reside special? So I want to start with Commissioner Bradshaw. So just take about 60 seconds or less.
Well, it's special to me because we're a small, close-knit area. We're a small rural town. Everyone knows everyone. Everyone seems to get along fairly well. We're just, I don't know, we're just a little small area that we work well together. We're like a big family. So I just look forward to us getting foots on the pavement to get this, started and everything, to complete it. So that's basically my opinion of what I think of Telfair. I just love everyone in Telfair County. I love doing my job. I love meeting people. I was scared at first, but because I didn't know what to expect, but I like going places and networking with people so I can find out different things that's going on in their community. And just again, meeting new faces and getting to communicate and talk with different people, constituents in the county.
Thank you. I'm gonna go next to Ms. Gonzalez. And again, thank you, Ms. Gonzalez, for standing in for Mayor Neal.
You're welcome. I was born and raised in Telfair County. All my family is in Telfair County. I didn't move to Jacksonville until about 8 years ago. Before then, I lived in the little community of Brookmore, which is not far from Jacksonville. When I come to Jacksonville, Jacksonville's a very tight-knit little community. Everybody's related to everybody, y'all. That like half the city is related to each other. And the mayor we have here, he is genuinely concerned about this city. I have never seen anyone love a city as much as that man does. And it's a cute little town. Like everybody's just as nice as they could be. It's like one big family down here.
That's awesome. I love it. I'm going to move now to Mayor Young.
Yes. So I've often said, and I truly feel this, I almost feel it's easier to be a mayor of a huge city when it comes to dealing with just constituents, because we as elected officials in Mcrae-Helena, Telfair County, we eat at the same places, we pump gas at the same places. Those conversations are there every day that you're having to interact. Just like Miss Rebecca said, she has to be the counselor and the clerk. But I want to echo what everyone else has said. The reason I got into mayor was it's simple. It was a zoning issue, and I wanted to understand zoning, and boy, do I now. But in our area, being small, being so close, being so knit, you have strong friendships and you have strong dislikes. But there's nowhere in this world that you can go when it's truly a time of need that our community does not come together better than Telfair County. And for me, I would never want to leave that.
Mhm.
Awesome. Very passionate. Thank you, Marianne. Going to Ms. Jackson.
Well, I was born in Telfair County and raised in Telfair County. Most of my family lived in Scotland. Of course, most of them's passed now. I grew up in Scotland. My mother was the city clerk for 9 years in Scotland. I didn't go in right behind her, but I worked for the county for 10 years, and the job came available, and I lived in Scotland. So our community is just wonderful. I love going in every morning and seeing everybody. I have the same citizens that come in every day to come get them a Pepsi Cola, because we don't have a store or anything. So we have a Pepsi machine in our city hall, and they come in, I think, just to talk and say hi, and love seeing smiley faces. And I agree with Mayor Mike Young about if anytime anybody needed anything, our county would be right there with each other. Everybody would do anything that they can to help somebody. We have a tight-knit county.
That's awesome. It seems like a similar message among you all, so that certainly is great. So I want to close out today's conversation again on behalf of Fair Count. We really do appreciate your time. Some of you stepping in for others. We really appreciate it. But a couple of reminders to those that are listening. There are 3 ways that you can complete the census. You can go online, my2020census.gov. You can call in at 844-330-2020. Again, 844-330-2020. Or if you've received that mailed paper questionnaire, again, don't throw it to the side in the mail. You can just simply take a few minutes to complete that and return it via mail. Again, I mentioned that Fair Count wants to be a resource, and we're certainly going to stay in contact with all of our panelists, even as soon as tomorrow morning. It sounds like Commissioner Bradshaw, but we want to be a resource to you. If you have access to the internet, faircount.org. Again, faircount.org is where you can get additional resources from us. We are it's really unfortunate we weren't able to physically make it to Telfair County with our bus, but hopefully as things get better in the future, we'll able to do some more in-person outreach within the county. But until then, we'll be doing it virtually and still reaching people, and we'll continue to text and call into the county to ensure. I would say we made probably over 2,000 calls today into Telfair County. To get people included and encouraged in the process. We will be making our 4th stop on this virtual bus tour on Friday in Clayton County, so you can go to our website to find out more information about that. But until then, we wish everyone to have a great evening, good night, take care, and stay healthy.
Thank you all. Great.
Bye, neighbors.
And thank you all for participating in this. I'm so glad that I was able to count on you all. I don't know what I would do without you all, and I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for getting all this started, Ms. Bradshaw. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I echo that. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You all have a blessed night.
You too.